In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, you are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. I'm Eric, and welcome back to our newest In the Lobby discussion. Today, we're actually going to be chatting with Rich Brown and Keith Linde. They are both Marine Corps veterans and local entrepreneurs here in the Fredericksburg and Stafford, Virginia area. So today we're going to be discussing how veterans are portrayed in film, what Hollywood gets right, what it gets wrong, and we'll also discuss some mental health, among veterans as well. So, gentlemen, welcome to the lobby, and thank you for being a part of our first in-person one, and thank you for allowing us to borrow your studio, so very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, love that you guys are doing this. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your work, and after you've told a little about biographical stuff, tell me about Guide On 22.
Yeah. Rich and I met when we were in Quantico. We were Marines together. We both served in the operational forces before becoming combat instructors there. And since we met, we've been lifelong friends, and decided to start a gym together, and that gym is Honor Bound Fit. We are a gym that specializes in strength and mobility with the emphasis or the end goal of wanting people to be healthy into their 80s. Like, one of the things we say is, like, I want you to be able to roll around in the grass with your grandkids, your great grandkids. And that comes with consistent effort over the years, and, good coaching and picking up some heavy weights, doing a little bit of cardio, eating well, taking care of yourself. And part of that too is building the whole character, right? Building your whole person. So we have moral lessons and lines that we discuss on a regular basis, oftentimes related to scripture as the best guide for morality that exists. Yep. And just trying to do good things for the community, good things for people, and have them live more prosperous and healthy lives.
Excellent. So, Rich, a little bit more about yourself, and then Guide On 22, because I know you're kind of the one that picked up the Guide On and is charging forward with that.
It's a nice transition there. Like it's good. Yeah, no, I'm Rich. Again, Keith and I met at the basic school where we both taught the student lieutenants. I started a security company right out of the basic school. I was there for 2 years before I got out. I started my own business, and that's why, when Keith was kind of looking for purpose a couple of years ago, I said, "Hey, bud, when are we going to start this gym?" Yeah. Right? And I just kind of pushed him in that direction, and good things have come from that, thankfully. But yeah, I run a private security company. I help Keith run Honor Bound Fit. And one of the things that we wanted to do as a gym was to introduce our members to rucking, because it's a great tool for fitness. It's the fastest way to get into zone 2 cardio and maintain zone 2 cardio, much less injury prone than running. So it's a great fitness tool, and we wanted to introduce our members to it. So we started doing it progressively last year, and we said we wanted to work up to a goal. So we said, you know what? December 22nd, this is last year, is on a Sunday. It's the holiday season, which is when veteran suicide is at its highest. And so why don't we work up towards 22 miles, and that'll be our keystone event for the year. And so we're doing it again this year. We started with 6 miles in the spring, and we worked up to 22. We have our 18-mile costume ruck on November 1st, the day after Halloween. And then the last event, for rucking for the year is November 22nd, is Guide On 22. And it's 22 miles with 22 pounds for veteran and first responder suicide prevention. We don't want to leave first responders out. Yeah. Veterans are leading the charge when it comes to suicide. But first responders, whether it's firefighters, law enforcement, or EMTs, are certainly bringing up those numbers as well. And so we care about them. We think they're the home team, right? The military couldn't deploy overseas and protect the country at a distance if we didn't have good, strong men and women back here, protecting the home front, so to speak. So, Guide on 22 is November 22nd. It's a big event for us. You can find out more about it on our website.
Excellent. So with, you guys told me last time I met, I was like, what is a guide on? So like, what, for those that aren't initiated, what's a guide on? And so
the guide on is very symbolic for us, right? Mm-hmm. Before you had, modern communications, before we even had radios on the battlefield, we had our battle standards and drones. That's how you communicated at distance. But the battle standard represented your unit, and it represented responsibility. When you have a change of command ceremony, whether it's in the Marine Corps or other branches, you physically pass the guide on from commander to commander as a representation of your unit and the responsibility that it takes to lead it, right? And so the status quo among a lot of veterans right now, unfortunately, is that I'm going to EAS from the military. I'm going to separate from the military, and I'm going to use my DD-214 as rolling papers, and I'm going to play video games and collect a disability check and not really care where the rest of my life goes. And so the message we're trying to send to them is that, it's fine to decompress after service, but don't isolate, because that's the quickest way to isolation, is by just checking out and playing video games for the rest of your life. So that's not the man or woman who stood on the yellow footprints or raised their right hand to swear an oath to the Constitution. So find that person within yourself again. Find a cause in your community. Find something worth rallying around to unite your community and be a leader and a role model to people in your neighborhood, and pick up your guide on and lead.
Nice. That's awesome, guys. No, thank you. Now to talk about the silly stuff. That's incredible. I wish there was a better transition. I should save this for the end. So one thing we like to do with all of our guests is just ask the question out there that trumps every single person. Doesn't matter your backgrounds. What's your favorite movie?
Think about this one. Anything Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino. But if I had to pick one, like The Departed is definitely up there as like a top favorite movie. Every time I watch it, there's a new awesome bit to it.
Incredible book.
Oh yeah, and it's just two. You got the rat and the criminal chasing each other through the movie. Really, really good movie. I enjoy that one a lot. Yeah.
I mean, Rich.
It sucks because I always want to be like, well, what kind of movie, right?
Yeah.
Like, are we talking about like highly quotable comedies like Step Brothers or Wedding Crashers, or dramas, war films? It's always going to be behind enemy lines. No, it's going to be Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
Until a better one comes along. Departed's up there at the top. But then you got like the movies you cut your teeth on as a kid.
Yes.
Varsity Blues is always like probably not the best movie ever, but it was a huge part of my childhood. So it's always going to be there near the top.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in a long time, but True Lies.
Oh,
As a kid, I was like, that's the best movie in the world.
It's funny. I played the video game a lot. That was one of like, terrible game. Yeah.
That's cool. All right. So to start talking a little bit more about veterans, how the military in general is viewed on film. So what are some things that Hollywood gets right? And then what does it just get wrong all the time?
I think the one thing that Hollywood, doesn't do the best job of is portraying what veterans are like, or what it's like to actually be there. A lot of the movies you see, they have like these very like gung ho, and like they say these like cliche, dorky, like, this is my trigger, like just stuff like that. And it's kind of embarrassing because it's like, no, like you're there to do a job. Most of the time you're just complaining. But it's, or any like,
it's like any job.
But like, they show the esprit de corps, but like, that's not how we really are. Like, you're really just over there doing a job, and you're not sitting there saying "oorah" all the time, that fake motivation that they show, and you can tell the actors don't get it because it's not genuine. So it's just like, that's not really what we act like a lot of the times. And that's like the thing that the veterans pick up on more than like, of course, everyone talks about the fireball explosions and stuff like that, but it's the mood and the atmosphere of like guys that are like, oh man, we got another mission. Like, oh, okay. Like, hey man, you got my rippets, or like you got my peanut jelly sandwich with me, or whatever it is. You got poke bait and chow. Like that's what we care about more. Rather than it's like, nope, another mission. Like whatever, it'll be over soon enough.
Yeah.
Poke bait.
Yeah, poke bait. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad, he served Army. He was a dog handler for a while. He was only in for 3 years back in the 70s. But one of the things that has bugged him since the 70s is over and out. He's like, no, it's over or it's out.
Radio communications. Yeah.
He's like, no, this is the entire life.
The other one, it's Roger Wilco.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marines never say Wilco. You know what Wilco means?
Yeah.
Will comply. Oh, look at sugar.
Yeah.
Comply. Of course, your dad put Roger means. That's what it is. It's a lawful order. We follow the order. That's all it is too.
Okay. So I know we were going to talk about, when we were initially setting this up, talking about 2 movies and a comparison of how one is considered one of the greatest movies of all time. Veterans love it. Civilians love it. Cinematography, it's excellent. And then one that people watch, but they quickly forget and then make fun of. And so the 2 movies that we're talking about is Black Hawk Down and Behind Enemy Lines. And if you don't already know which one is which, Black Hawk Down is the one that's considered one of the greatest films of all time. Probably, push comes to shove, probably my actual personal favorite movie. I don't know how many times I've watched it. This morning I logged on to YouTube. It's like, oh, I'll watch a couple of videos, and scrolling through, I was like, I know that scene. It's like I just need the picture to know and go. I was right back there. Yeah. So we're also recording this on October 1st, which is 2 days before the anniversary of the actual Battle of Mogadishu. So, Rich, why don't you kind of give a little bit of background on Black Hawk Down? I know there's tons of podcasts out there that you can listen to about that. A little background on that, what it gets right, and then we can talk about the other movie. Sure.
So, what a lot of people don't realize about Black Hawk Down is that, yes, Black Hawk Down and Behind Enemy Lines are technically based on actual events that happened, right? Very, very loosely, as in, like, yes, there was a pilot who was shot down over Bosnia and he was recovered, right? Everything else about the movie is fiction. But for Black Hawk Down, it started as a journalism piece. It started as an article. And then he was so good at the article that he expanded the article into a book. And then the book was optioned into a screenplay. And every step along the way, you had one person who really gave a damn about keeping the story as accurate as possible and telling the story to the best of the ability for the men who were involved in the fight, right? And so when you have that kind of mindset from the very beginning, is trying to get it as accurate as possible and trying to honor the people who were involved in that battle, it's going to typically go okay, right? Whereas with Behind Enemy Lines, it might as well be a Bond movie just based on an actual date and thing that kind of happened. Right? Does that kind of answer your question? Yeah.
I think in Black Hawk Down, when you compare the 2 movies, what Black Hawk Down really did well was it showed the way a military unit would actually work together, right? You have multiple different agencies and a task force coming together to achieve quick reaction force. You got your Hilo, you got your Delta, you got your Rangers, you got all these separate units, and there's a lot of people there. Versus versus Behind Enemy Lines, where it's one pilot goes down and he turns into a Bond movie or a Superman, where this one pilot has all these super soldier skills to be able to do this thing. But when you look at Black Hawk Down, it's the team together was able to accomplish this and able to survive, to endure through that, and work together, communications and how they break down versus, again, Enemy Lines, one guy with the might of the Navy behind him, but he's out there alone and unafraid. And it's like, that's not, who can relate to that, Yeah.
Not only can they not relate to it, but with Behind Enemy Lines, they were almost throughout the entire movie, they're making physics happen that doesn't and they're using technology that didn't exist 10, 15, 20 years later. There's a scene, and we'll show the scenes later, but there's a scene where they're moving satellites into place to be able to watch what's happening on the ground in real time. We don't have satellites that can do that now. We have drones that can do that. but we didn't have thermal cameras in space that could show you what's happening right this minute. And if they did, it was for a glimpse in time.
Yeah.
And because the satellites were orbital. So you could get it in position, but it's only going to be there while it's moving. And then once it's out of rotation, like 24 hours later, we'll see what happens.
But yeah, so if you want, we can jump right into some of those clips if you want. We can talk about them because
Sure.
We kind of went through, for those, spoiler alert, everyone. This is actually our second time recording. We recorded this like a month ago, and then the audience ended up being, it's the audience. It brings them in and it makes it feel for us. So I've seen some of these videos already. So if you want, we can jump right into those, and we'll talk about those. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Black Hawk Down after we talk about Behind Enemy Lines.
Cool. So there's a clip in Behind Enemy Lines, the very beginning, where like they start off real strong with like how serious this movie's going to take reality, because they're throwing a football in the flight deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of them gets the idea, like, I'm going to use this device that we use to catch the airplanes to kick off this ball, and then I'm going to run out and catch it, right?
Take an officer punch.
But you can't do that in real life, because they tried it and it just destroyed the ball. The ball was just incinerated. So they had to have somebody throw it, and they throw it really well.
Yeah.
This is a good job of throwing the ball, right? But it's not anywhere near reality. Another scene is
That didn't even say something like, "Oh, how are you going to do that?" Oh,
We're getting a little physics class.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll show you a physics class if mine doesn't work.
Yeah.
You guys ready for a little lesson in physics?
When the plane is shot down over Bosnia, they fire 2 SAM missiles at the airplane. But
Shit, they fired! Scoop it now! Pull up! Get the nose moving! Roger! I see a single missile tracking on it. I don't see it. Call my turn. No, slice left. Hard! Jesus Christ! Where is it? Right! Try to break the lock!
these SAM missiles, I call them super missiles, because they don't exist in reality. There's not a missile, there's still not a missile that we have available that can dodge flares and go around your countermeasures in order to shoot down an airplane, and that's what it does.
Yeah.
It's this in better ways. They could have had multiple SAM sites that are shooting multiple rockets, and then you dodge them. But not only can they not dodge flares, but these, I'll have to look at the time hack in the video. It flies for so long that it would have had to have been like 7 times the size just to have that amount of propellant to launch that missile down the bar, right? So just the missiles are insane and stupid. And then we've talked about the
minefield.
You want to talk about it?
In the minefield, so it's this part where, the bad guys see him and he's got to run through the middle of the street. That's lined with tripwire mines, and he's careful at first. Keeps running, and then he just starts blowing up, starts hitting all the tripwires, and all the explosives start going. And it's like he's running through a minefield and having explosions going as he's, getting through this. It's like, how effective are those mines?
Yeah.
Why even have them there if a guy can just run through it? And so
That's
dramatic.
an idea. Instead of lining the outside of the perimeter with the why not just put one of them?
Right. So I mean, just ridiculous. I mean, it looks awesome and so cinematic and so dramatic for Owen Wilson to be running through that minefield, but it's just, it holds no weight. Like, why would you have such an ineffective booby trap set up? You know,
I talked about that for I forget which episode I was talking on, where it's like, oh wow, this scene was incredible, but then when you step back and go, wait, did that scene actually make any sense in the context of the story they were trying to tell? And that, and yeah, is things like that. Oh, cinematically, this is incredible, showing how awesome he is. It's going to make you remember that Owen Wilson was trying to be an action star at one point in his life. Once. But no, so going back to Black Hawk Down, talk about it, is, so there's certain scenes that have stuck with me for years. I don't know the actor's actual name, but when Jamie Lannister, I'll just call him, when he and the other Delta Force sniper get permission to land and secure the second downed chopper and provide cover for the alive pilot. Mm-hmm. I know what that feels like as a man to watch that scene and just that brotherhood. Like, what's that like as a military person who you've been in similar, or you had to be prepared at least to go into similar type of situations like that. So if you guys want, as much as you want to talk about, that type of feeling and that level of brotherhood, even beyond brotherhood, honestly.
There's a unique quality of the United States Armed Forces, and I've heard other articles written about this, and it's, if you're in a bad spot and you need to make a call for help, you really hope the Americans pick up, right? Because they don't ask questions. They don't ask, about the logistics and this and that. They go, we're coming to get you, hold tight. And that's just kind of bred into us, like no man left behind type thing. And like, you don't even question it. You just go. And maybe there's social pressure. Maybe you've been indoctrinated into that way of thinking.
Can I interrupt for a second? Yeah. So I'm not going to make this overly political, but when you look at Benghazi, when you look at, I think Benghazi is a great example. You can watch 13 Hours and they portray the difference there where, again, I'm not going to get super political about who was in power on that, but the Marines, the Air Force, the Army were all nearby and just itching to get into the fight. Yeah. Like, hey, those are our people. Let's go get them. And it was, State Department, et cetera. Like, nope, you can't. Nope. We're not going in there. We're not doing that, et cetera. And meanwhile, the military is like about to commit a war crime because you don't leave our guys alone and unafraid.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And it's so bred into you. Like, if anyone were to chicken out of that, like, you wouldn't. Like, you go because that's your call, and you would want someone to come for you. So you go for those that are down. And there's no question, like, it's very unique to the United States military, for sure.
Now, I did watch the final scene where Eric Bana is talking to Josh Hartnett, I think it is, right at the end, and he's getting prepared to go back out.
Still out there?
You going back in? There's still men out there. God damn. When I go home, people ask me, hey, Hoot, why do you do it, man? Why? You some kind of war junkie? I won't say a goddamn word. Why? They won't understand. They won't understand why we do it. They won't understand it's about the men next to you. And that's it. That's all it is.
And that, what you just said was the script version. From that. What other parts of Black Hawk Down do they really get right from a military perspective?
I'm going to divert to Keith because I know you have one that's on your mind.
So, it's like little things, in the heat of battle when the two guys get left behind, right? Where they're in the, they have their sector of fire and they're laying down fire and the one guy goes deaf, right? Yeah, that happens. You're not going to have earplugs on the battlefield. And if you do, they're more of a hindrance. So you need to be able to communicate when you've lost your hearing, everyone's voice is rasped, there's, battlefield confusion and noise going on. And that part where those two get left behind, that's a real world thing. We plan away from it and we have link up plans and we have phase lines and we have, accountability while we're going. But yeah, something like that where you get lost and it's like, okay, we need to get here because I know that's where they're going, right? That's the things you plan for. And the reality is that things like that do happen, sadly. So that's definitely one where it's moments like that and just how that developed was that could happen. Absolutely. And it did according to the story.
To civilians, it seems maybe insignificant, but there's a scene in the beginning of the movie that I feel like every single, at least Marine, has experienced that scene where small unit leadership is so important. And gear checks and all the things. And so there's a scene in the very beginning where they're getting ready to go out on this operation. And there's this one Lance Corporal who's like, what do you need a back sound plate for? You're not going to get shot in the back. We're not running from anybody.
Hey, you're not going to need that either. We're back before dark. You might as well take dope and beer instead.
What?
Ammo, dude. Take ammo.
Let me tell you something, Grimes. You got about 50 pounds of gear as it is. You don't need another 12. I don't know about you, but I'm not planning on getting shot in the back running away.
Well, I better keep mine in.
Hey, Grimes, most important thing, just remember when everybody else is shooting in the same direction.
Oh, you're not going to need that much water because we're only going out on a 3-hour operation, and you don't need your NVGs because we're not coming out. We're not going to be out after dark, et cetera, et cetera. And all the things that he lists off, he's like, you don't need that. You don't need that. You're such a boot. You don't even know what we're doing. Could have used every single one of those items out in the fight, and hopefully there was a good, team leader or squad leader around and be like, don't be an asshole. Do this shit.
Now, I just listened to the Hoot. Was on Jocko Willick's podcast thing 2 weeks ago or something like that, and he was talking about it, and some of that was real, where they're like, we're 10-hour mission or whatever, type of thing. It was like, one of the questions I have from basically about the rules of engagement. In Black Hawk Down, you have the two guys, they're getting shot at, but they're like, it's not, they're talking about the rules of engagement. It's like, when can they start to shoot back? Now, granted, this was the story from the 90s that was made in 2001, so even before, Afghanistan, Iraq. So rules may have changed by the time you guys were in. What was it like? Well, not much.
Luckily, there's a pretty simple one that always kind of exists, and it's hostile act and hostile intent, right? Is someone showing hostile intent? For example, they can walk with a rifle. They're not hostile. They just have a rifle, but they pointed at you. That's hostile intent, right? Even maybe hostile act would be pulling the trigger, or even pointing a rifle at me might be hostile act. But I can justify that, I was in threat for my life, or the lives of people around me. That's a pretty safe one, right? But you better be sure that they're pointing at you or they're doing that thing. But hostile act, hostile intent is clearly that thing. So I think they're kind of debating of are they shooting at us or are they shooting near us? Yeah. And maybe a little bit, churched up a little bit, but that's really the thing is, what are their hands doing? What is their intention? And what are they actively doing to harm you? Digging an IED is a hostile act, right? Especially, that would be something that definitely confirmed there's bombing material there. Digging an IED, that's a hostile act because they're trying to kill service members. So that kind of clears up the rules of engagement. And of course, there's a lot more as you get into deeper operations and quick environments like that. But that's usually the common one. And that's usually pretty safe to go by.
Can I use this to pick on Hollywood for a second?
Absolutely.
One of my pet peeves, he talks about the big explosions and stuff like that. We all kind of laugh at that stuff, but there are things that will pull you out of the scene, especially as a veteran who knows better, right? And so I think it's worse with law enforcement shows that are on daily TV or whatever than military, but they both get it wrong at times. But especially with the law enforcement stuff and rules of engagement, they see somebody that's a problem or whatever, and they're running away from them and they're shooting at them while they're running away from them. Like, you can't do that. That's not okay. You can't. You don't shoot someone who's running away unless there's like like he said, justify, right? I've been told before in private security, well, there's absolutely no reason to shoot someone who's running away from you. Okay. Well, we provide security for a college that has a lab that has anthrax. So if they're running away with anthrax, I'm going to shoot them. Yeah. Right. There's always a way to justify something if you're doing the right thing. Yeah. Right. So I hate absolutes like, oh, you can't do that, never do that, etc. I will say never. Be the one who is going into a home or wherever at night with your flashlight on your rifle or handgun that's constantly on. You're going to get shot. That's a never thing to do, right? One of the things that made our experience in Iraq and Afghanistan so much easier is that we have night optics devices, right? We have night vision, and we have lasers on our rifles that only we can see because we have night vision. Yeah. Because your average Al-Qaeda, ISIS, whoever, prior to us leaving all those weapons over there, they didn't have night vision. And so we owned the night. We really owned the night because we could walk around in the dark and see everything and use lasers to mark things and shoot at things. And the enemy didn't have that, right? So we had a huge advantage. But then you come home and you watch, whatever cop show or whatever film show. And I know cinematography is a thing, right? We want it to look good. And it looks cool when we're waving flashlights around when we're clearing the building. But if you do that in real life, you're going to get shot in the face, right? Because now I know exactly when you're coming around the corner because your light tells me so. Yeah. You know what I mean?
They're sitting there flashing the door that they're going to, or, the hallway they're about to go down. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Like, they don't know you're coming. Yeah.
All right. So shift gears just a little bit. How about films that depict the return home? What are some good films in that? Where ones that miss the mark? Yeah. So talk about
I remember first time when I watched American Sniper in the theater, and I came out, and there was an older gentleman, and he looked at me, and he was like, it had a moment where we made eye contact, and he was like, "Did you bring it back?" And I was like, "Yeah, it really did." That movie was really emotional, and a lot of it is because of the combat stress he was dealing with when he came home. Now, Chris Kyle saw way more combat than me, especially. But just that stress that, there's a scene where he's watching a blank TV and it's playing all these war sounds and these noises of war. And you come around and it's the, the sounds in his head. And like, you definitely have moments like that where like things get quiet, things get still, and you start to remember things, and you just start to have that like heightened sense of anxiety. You start to look for like threats around you because that's what you've been doing for so long. So I thought American Sniper did a really good job of, coming home, having to deal with that stress while trying to be a dad and having a birthday party for your kids, American Sniper did a really good job of it, for sure.
Am I supposed to be the one who's always negative and always says that?
You want to talk about another positive one?
Yeah. Well, I will say, let me put it this way. You don't always have to portray the veteran as damaged goods, right? Not every veteran has PTSD. Not every veteran is walking around pissed off and disgruntled or sad all the time. Not every veteran gets upset when you set off fireworks. First, I love fireworks, but I'm also, usually I don't get it. I've fired over 200 rockets in my life. I really don't give a crap. Like I've done way cooler things than your red, white, and blue stars going off, right? But almost every veteran, every story could include a veteran, and you don't even have to call attention to it. There's a show on Netflix right now called Tires with Shane Gillis. And there's a guy in the show that they don't say what his background is or whatever. I always thought like it kind of has veteran vibes. Yeah. He's just a quiet guy who's always doing his job and just getting shit done. It's like, that could be a veteran story. You could say that he was a veteran and just include him in your show or whatever. You don't have to make it over the top or, like I said, make every veteran damaged, et cetera, to make it a veteran story.
So do you have any particular movies in mind where you're like, that movie's crap, probably shouldn't, it's like veterans probably shouldn't watch this because it's probably going to, hurt them, or
no, but I would say
general population shouldn't watch it
because
they will
usually do it almost as a throwaway thing.
Okay.
Like they'll have, I think, I want to say it was like, we watched a lot of Smallville in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I remember being in Afghanistan and seeing some scene where, it was a veteran who was part of some elite unit or whatever, and now he's a huge problem to society, right? And he's just like borderline superhuman strength and all this stuff. And it's like, why? But yeah, they almost always have some over the top thing. And I can't think of one particular. I'm sure there are some movies, but I didn't think about it prior to this little get together, so I didn't have one on the top of my head. Keith, do you have one?
Well, I think just going with the theme, like you see it a lot where the veteran comes home and they are just easy to set off, or they're stressed out, or they're depressive state, or they're drinking a lot, which all those things absolutely occur. But they kind of like hammer home with this throwaway cliche of like damaged veteran, or like they've been through so much. And saying most veterans I know, like you come to grips with what you've been through, or you just deal with it and you're fine, right? Like you just move on with your life because it's just business, right? Warfare is just business, is all it is. And that's the best way to kind of approach those situations. But it's just that trope of damaged veteran. You see it in a lot of movies. One movie that comes to mind, and it's a very, very extreme case, but I think it was Brothers with Tobey Maguire and Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah. He's captured and tortured by the Taliban for many months or years. And then his brother ends up with his wife, and like basically moves into his family. And it's like, that guy came home and he was just a wreck. And it's like, that guy definitely rates it. But the guy that was in Al-Asad Air Base for 3-month deployment, like, he's fine. He was in his woman for,
Keith, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Just because you had an incredibly hard life doesn't mean that when his air conditioning went out, it was the worst time you could ever experience in your entire life.
Not all deployments are the same. Kuwait is not a deployment.
So talking about veteran mental health. So all you talked about, Guide on 22, what you guys are working to do, bringing more attention to that. So one of the questions that I have from outsider looking in is, in your estimate, what's missing from the conversation?
I think there's a very common thing socially and culturally right now about victimhood status, right? And a lot of veterans, I think, have kind of just latched on to, because of like, I'm a victim of war, right? And like, absolutely, like you experience war, you had very hard times, time away from family, all that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of veterans kind of fall back on that, and it's, you're not a victim, right? You were a badass for a while. Like, don't yes, deal with your stuff, go to therapy, get in the gym, be with your tribe, do all those things to overcome the stuff that you had to go through. But don't be a victim. Don't just like fall back on that and just be, I'm a victim and this happened to me and I'm going to be an alcoholic for the rest of my life. So like the mental health thing is, pick up your guide on and carry it, right? Go lead your community, take the skills and the talents you learned in the military and go bring that to the civilian population. You hear all the time, like, you can always tell a Marine apart from everyone else because the way they carry themselves, the way they get jobs done, or just the way that they interact with the world around them. And it's the same thing for all veterans. Like, you were a badass before. Go do it again. Don't sit and wallow in your shame and your pity. Don't be a victim. Like, go lead your community, lead your family, whatever it is. And I think a lot of that, will help the mental health of, instead of just appealing to this woe is me mentality, like, get out and do something cool again,
It was my turn.
You don't have to.
No, he's absolutely right. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Is more of, so talking about veterans' mental health, suicide epidemic. What's kind of missing from the conversation from within the military circles, within veteran communities, and then if you want to do broader, the broader scope, what's kind of missing in that conversation?
Yeah, so we sort of talked about it earlier. There's two things that you lose when you exit the military. You lose your tribe and you lose your purpose. And so the sooner you can figure those two things out again, the better off you're going to be. That's part of the reason we built Honor Bound Fit the way we did. Yeah. You know, we want it to be open and approachable to everybody who has similar values to us, right? We put our 14 core values out there on the wall for everyone to see them. If you don't like those, then you probably aren't a good fit here, right? But they're also values that most military men can rally around. So we wanted this building, this organization that we're building to be to feel like a tribe. And it does in a lot of ways. So we have a very tight-knit community. We joke sometimes because we wanted it to be mostly for vet bros, but about once a week we look at each other, we're not a women's gym. Because about 90% of our clientele are women. And it's
about 60% now. It's getting better.
Is it? Getting better. Yeah. Cool. I don't, you know, again, we're honored by it because, you know, they feel comfortable with us. They like being in this environment, and that means a lot to us, right? But also, I would also think as you know, if I was still a 26-year-old Marine, 22-year-old Marine, that's probably where I'd want to be, is surrounded by women. And not this sausage fest that I enlisted into, right? Because we were infantry, right? It's men everywhere all the time. You know, even when I was teaching at the basic school, it was, how soon can I get away from these men and go hang out with women for a while? But yeah, find tribe and find purpose. Again, with Guidon 22, pick up your Guidon and lead. It's find a cause that you can rally around, right? Whether it's just you, or it's you and your neighbors, or you using the internet to find people who want to work on your mission, etc. Find a good way to contribute to our society, and don't just be a guy who sits around and bitches about it all the time.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for that, guys. The only overlap that I have talking about the victim mentality, talking about, you know, pick up your Guidon, is I have a genetic bleeding disorder, and that mentality of victimhood runs rampant in the community, to the point I was being paid along with about 10 other, you know, hemophiliacs. We were at a pharmaceutical thing. We were being paid $4,000 for our weekend, and everyone was complaining about their disorder. And I literally just looked at it and I was like, I'm sorry, this is a tremendous blessing in my life.
That's probably I'm here experience you've never had.
Yeah.
Because in you know, when we were active in the military, there's always at least about an hour every day where you're sitting around waiting to get released from work. But I would joke all the time that you could, if it was 11:30 on a Friday, your company first sergeant could come outside and say, hey, I know we usually get off around noon on Friday, but we got 27 kegs in the barracks and as much pizza as a village could eat. And I'm going to keep all the inappropriate parts of this joke out for your audience, but, you know, we're going to be out of here by 5:00. Enjoy the rest of your day. And at least 2 or 3 Lance Corporals would be like, this is the biggest pile of crap ever. Make it an entire party and then still find a way to complain. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
You know, what you're saying with your condition too, it ties into one of our core values being, regardless of the environment, circumstances, or opposition, individuals are responsible for their own attitudes, behaviors, and outcomes. Right? That sucks that happened.
Yeah.
Right? That's not a fair lot in life, but life isn't fair. Right? No. And it's up to you to deal with the lot you've been given and decide how you're going to behave. And only you are responsible for how your life is going to have been. You know, so you can sit and wallow and just want pity, or what can you do? Right? What can you do regardless of the lot you've been dealt, right? Yeah. And like I said, a lot of victimhood in the mentality. Okay, so you can't do this. Could you do this? Right? Yeah. You can't do that. Could you do this? Is there something that you excel at that other people can't, or something that you could dive into that other people just isn't for them? Everyone has their options.
One of the things I bring to that point is it an is it a catalyst for growth? Are you looking at it as a catalyst for growth? And that's how I looked at it for years. And then when I had that experience, I was like, okay, now I'm really leaning into this, because now I saw how rampant that mindset was, that we could be being put up in really nice hotels, being fed very good dinners, being paid more than any of us ever made in a weekend. And we were still like, oh, can you believe I have this thing? I was like, yeah, I know. Can you believe we have this thing? It's incredible. Yeah. So that I want to move into some rapid fire with you all. So
we're getting back to movies.
Yeah. Because we're a movie podcast, unfortunately, sometimes. Yeah, I love it though. But favorite movie snack?
Sour Patch Kids. Yeah.
Ooh. Reese's Pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm right there with him. Best in the world. Guilty pleasure films.
Mean Girls. What? That was.
No, I'm sorry. That's not a guilty pleasure. That's just a pure cinema.
Almost any
October 3rd.
Yeah. It's not rapid fire, but almost any veteran I know that was in Iraq in OIF, early. Like, you guys all cram around the laptop and watch Mean Girls like 20 times, or the OC or Smallville.
Yeah.
All these like what you wouldn't expect veterans to be watching in the middle of a war zone.
Very teenager type of film. Yeah.
What's it's got Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, the other guys.
Yeah.
That's not a guilty pleasure movie because, again, that's an incredible movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
I've watched it at least a dozen times.
Since we're editing it, one of the best ones is go find the lowest rated movies you can find on Amazon. Like The Killer Couch.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are so much.
I've done this with Amazon Prime recently.
Yeah.
I forget what terms I used, but I was like, worst movies of the 80s.
It's a fun. Yeah, have you seen that one?
Yeah. Yeah, my dad bought a DVD case that came with like 40 movies from like 4 horror movies from the 80s. It's pure crap. Almost everything completed total crap. So we already talked about it briefly, but American Sniper.
Phenomenal. I mean, it's a great movie and honoring a great warfighter. Yeah, and get so choked up at the end when they show the funeral procession. That was good. It was a great movie, though. Absolutely.
So we'll skip the next one because I already talked about it last time when we recorded. Was Master and Commander, and they hadn't seen it. And they were like, "Well, we're not Navy." Yeah, I was like, "Well, it's the British." So. Yeah, it's not about the American Navy anyway. So we'll skip Master and Commander, but they got on me because I had never seen Fury. So
that's true.
Yeah. So how about We Were Soldiers?
That movie I really loved. I remember that was one I watched a lot before I joined, and when he's doing like they're doing the formation right before they deploy, and I remember some of you will die, and it was just very much like. That's really cool. And the movie overall and that story is phenomenal. Watching the two generals battle back and forth, watching their plans and how they adapted to each other. And then the grit and determination of the individual soldier down on the ground. That movie is phenomenal.
Yeah. I love to talk about highly quotable movies. That one's not highly quotable, but there is one scene in that movie that you think about all the time, especially if you've seen it and you're in the military is, I forget what rank he is. He's probably a first sergeant or a sergeant major or something, but he's walking down the sidewalk and this young Marine or soldier walks by and he's like, "Good morning, Sergeant." Good morning, Sergeant. Says Sergeant Major.
Sergeant Major.
Morning, Sergeant Major. Is it? What are you, weatherman now? Like he's doing exactly kid's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. Yeah. And he's just being an ass.
Tell me it's kind of damn dangerous. That's pretty accurate.
My dad, when he was going through is it basic? Whichever with the boot camp. Yeah.
Marine Corps boot camp.
So it's basic. No, he was going through basic. His name is Dwight George. Well, last name, first name. And the instructor starts to get on him about who's this moron that put his first name here. And my dad's like, I got him. He's like, well, it actually is my last name. So that's a stupid last name.
Yeah.
You're wrong even when you're right.
Exactly. And then my dad was like, okay, this is what the next 3 years is going to be. Starship Troopers.
That's a phenomenal movie.
I know.
I mean, yeah. It's one of those movies I love. We talk about how wrong a lot of the military movies are and how they get so many of the things wrong and that kind of stuff. But that's the nice thing about a science fiction movie.
Yeah.
Because right here, you can't bitch about the tactics if it's a movie about aliens. It wouldn't happen. Yeah, no, of course it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, of course a bug wouldn't be able to shoot plasma out of his butt and fly all the way into space.
So back to Black Hawk Down and Behind Enemy Lines. If you're going to do a movie about a real event where people are still living, you better get it right. And you should probably involve them in the film to get it right. But if you want to do ridiculous things, just make it science fiction. Don't claim that it's a real movie, right? Or a real thing that happened.
That's awesome. The Hurt Locker.
It's kind of like that one man army thing, he's going out all by himself into the green zone and doing all these solo missions and just, pulling 155s out of the ground with his bare hands. Very just eccentric, not realistic at all. And, made for Hollywood,
Ruby.
Didn't see it.
Didn't see it.
I'm Knuff. That's it. I thought
what?
Knuff. It's Ken sings a song about how he's enough, but he's Ken Nuff. I thought it was hilarious, but because Ryan Gosling was funny, the rest of the movie, it was whatever. But like, it wasn't made for me. Is the way I best describe that.
Okay.
But I did find it funny.
All right, how about Lone Survivor?
Keith's looking at me because I lived that movie, so I wasn't one of the guys who was on the helicopter that got shot down.
Yeah.
But at the very end, how all the troops come in. That didn't happen that way either. But I was part of the unit that went in to get Marcus when he was shot down and all that. I think the movie serves its purpose very well.
Okay.
I'm sure that there's probably things that Marcus Luttrell didn't like about the movie. I'm sure that there, all of us who were involved can probably find things to nitpick, and people love to nitpick things anyway. But the spirit and intent of the movie, I think, was right on.
Okay. I only saw it once. I remember really liking it. So Rich, best film about bodyguards.
There's only a handful of movies about bodyguards, really. I will say that The Bodyguard is the OG, and that's a movie that did the industry a lot of good by kind of like recruiting bodyguards. And he does a lot of things. If you're reading between the lines, everybody has this assumption or this perspective of bodyguards that the only bodyguards are the ones who are always arm's length away and always right there next to the principal, et cetera, or they're always walking in a diamond formation. But there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, especially protecting the family of the principal and the property and so on. You have residential security teams who are there to make sure that the home is safe. You have transportation teams to make sure that the transportation goes well. But a lot of it is advance work. It's what happens before the principal ever gets where they're going. People are doing all the homework to make sure that all the obstacles are out of place. Every time that something happens on a stage, whether it's music or whatever, the bodyguard community is sharing that video with each other because they're like, oh, look,
someone didn't do their job.
Somebody didn't make sure the stage was safe. Yeah. Right? All that's, it's always, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Keith, best film about a gym.
There's really only one that comes to mind.
So it's not selling steroids and cocaine.
No, Pain and Gain, Mark Wahlberg. Again, funny movie, terrible actual reality what happened there. But a funny movie about Miami bodybuilding and steroid culture. Not what we support here, but comical, entertaining at least.
All right. So last question I got for you guys is, if you were given unlimited budget and a guarantee that the movie would be good. All right. So unlimited budget, guaranteed good. What movie are you making?
Well, I think we've established that I don't like directly answering questions, right? So it'd be two. Can I do two?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I recently discovered, I was fortunate enough to have lunch with who was my company commander in Iraq. He's Brigadier General Matthew Tracy. He's at Marine Corps University now. So I got to have lunch with him the other day. And he informed me, I knew that there was a book about our deployment in Afghanistan called Victory Point. That same author also wrote a book called Warriors of Anbar. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to digest it here very quickly as soon as it gets delivered tomorrow. But he also informed me that a couple of guys that I deployed with have raised like $16 million to turn it into a Netflix series. So hopefully that works out. With all creative things, there, a couple of the big donors like, no, I want it to be this way, right? And so hopefully that doesn't tear it apart. But definitely, we had an incredible experience in Haditha in that when we showed up, it was after the Haditha massacre, and we had to kind of win back the hearts and minds the right way. By doing our job as Marines, kicking ass and taking names and owning the night, all the things. So when we showed up, we got shot at every day. Every time we left the wire, we got shot at, or IEDs or whatever. And then within a couple of weeks, we had impressed on the enemy that, like, no, we're here to stay. And they backed off because they moved on to another territory because we were kicking their butts so hard. So when we left, families were coming out of their homes and waving at us and throwing us soccer balls that weren't full of explosives. So that was a great experience. I'd love to see that turn into a movie. And then I named my private security company Leftwich Global Protective Services because William Groom Leftwich was an incredible leader. They have the Leftwich Trophy for a field grade commander who displays awesome infantry leadership. But nobody's ever heard of him.
Yeah.
If you go to the basic school, there's a statue of him in front of the basic school. The lieutenants even call him. They call it the "Follow Me" statue. Right? They don't even look at the name tag at the bottom of it to tell you that it's William Groom Leftwich. But he was shot down in Vietnam doing what he was known for. He actually created his own billet for himself called a extract officer. Right? So if his troops were in combat and got injured and they had to have an emergency medevac, he went out on the helicopter to make sure he came back safe. And then on one of those times it was shot down, and but nobody's ever heard of him. So I'd love to get the word out about who Lieutenant Colonel Leftwich was.
Excellent. Yeah. I'm not very creative or visionary, but given the events of the past few weeks, I think a very in-depth story about Charlie Kirk. I think that would. And then the way that the revival has happened, the way he was spreading the message, I had a feeling after that event, a little while after the event, of like we might have just seen the first, the closest thing to a martyr that we could have seen.
It's in the West, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I remember reading it and thinking a lot of the first martyr, stoned, Stephen, and just thinking about that, and I think you just examine the revival that's been happening, and it's been trending up. And I think that is even adding more because people that would have never given him a listen or listened to him and going to church for the first time or talking to Christ or praying or saying, "Hey God, I don't know if I believe in you, but if you exist, please show yourself to me. Like I'm earnestly seeking you." So I would love to see a good story about Charlie Kirk, and just to continue that revival and that gospel message. With peace and love and competence, so that would be where I went to.
Incredible. Thank you guys. All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for joining me today and letting us use your studio. This has been a lot of fun. I was about to say, everyone check out Guidon 22, and that you can find information on that from honorboundfit.com, right? Yeah. So honorboundfit.com. Check out Guidon 22. Even if you're not local to Fredericksburg, get the word out and create your own. Pick up a Guidon and run with it. So until next time, keep engaging movies and media from a godly worldview, and remember, you are not a mindless consumer.
The sparkling drinks are just dandy, the chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I need to hit the gym because look at my arms compared to you guys. My little
I'm trying to stay. I'm trying to stay smaller.
Should have worn something.
Women, you shouldn't be smaller. Don't let the world tell you to be smaller. And when you're like, I'll make myself smaller.
I appreciate you guys wanting to do that for me.
Yeah, I'll use this in the outtakes, by the way.